That's what's important.
Like fascism have knocked on America multiple times. This time, like I think that when Trump become a president, I think he'll do whatever necessary to
Mm,
to kind of use a bureaucratic element
mm.
to affirm his rule,
Yeah.
and he become a dictator. That's a possibility.
Hmm.
I hope that I'm wrong, but that's a possibility. Who knows? We don't expect it January 6th. January 6th is even
Hmm.
I didn't predict January 6th that would happen, but it happened. At the end of the day, historically in the Arab Spring, Egypt was like a democracy for a year, but actually the fact that a lot of them like hate the establishment because the guy who ended up being elected was Islamic conservative, and people didn't like it. The people, what they did is actually very like not adequately political, conscious political choice. They actually supported a military tyrant
Mm.
to go against him, and he made a coup supported by outside countries. But to give you the picture, like the same will happen, like Trump
I,
will
d- I,
actually.
I would have to like hard disagree just in the sense that like the United States, um, their position in the world, there needs to be a level of stability between like the leader within the leadership of the United States. So if there was ever like some form of attempt for Donald Trump to extend beyond like another term or something, like it's not like the rest of the world would then aid Donald Trump and say, all right, this is a good idea, and then get involved in United States politics and aid Donald Trump. They would actually work against Donald Trump and for whatever party is trying to remove him from getting that extra
I
term.
mean, Russia,
I
Russia, Russia
uh,
might try to work with him. I think going for a third term, so trying to go for a second term that you didn't win is probably easier than trying to go for a third term.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
Like
yeah, uh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he could pull that off. I do think there's like a decent chance that he would try. Um, I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
think
Yeah.
that there's he 100% he will tease the option. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't believe it's like it's not like his Supreme Court the people he appointed to put on the Supreme
Yeah.
Court are like firmly in his camp and believe everything that he believes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that isn't the most the Supreme Court justice that sides the most with Donald Trump's perspective, isn't it? Like it's
Well,
Clarence
there.
Thomas, who's not even
Mhm.
someone that
Well, there was
Donald Trump himself
Kavanaugh.
appointed.
So like the one explanation for picking Kavanaugh, who wasn't on like any list, was
Mhm.
he said that um, what was it? Just like something about that you could never like jail like a president, something like that. I forget. There was like a few things that Trump kind of personally wanted that
I
Kavanaugh
remember
had that
there's
as part of his
discussions over
philosophy.
that. There was
Um,
discussions over that during the
mhm,
time when they were like when Bill Barr became the attorney general, I believe, for a
mhm,
bit, where it was just like this whole discussion over if something were to happen to Donald Trump or if he was involved in something, some level of protection you get from being like the executive against like federal crimes or what have you. It was like a whole discussion, and I think it was tied to like the Mueller report and such. So that makes sense. But it's like, I mean, the idea that like Donald Trump would try is it's proven, right? Because like he went, I would argue, beyond just legal means, but like he exhausted his legal means to try and extend his presidency after four years. So it makes sense he'd try again. But to say
mhm.
that like
It'd be tough. It'd be tough to go for any kind of like. I think at the most he could probably like stall it out some number of months, but like I don't. It would be a lot for him to try to go for a third term. Like that's the point where, um, like it seems like there's a lot of like white supremacists in police, but it seems like the army is not so much. Like it would have to be an actual full on like civil war
I
for that kind
yeah,
of shit. Like it would
and
have to escalate to that
and
level.
I would argue that a
Um,
lot of his supporters are like maligned, and the idea that they're just like they're okay with like the Donald Trump saying, you know what, I'm going for another 4 years, is just I don't think it's like, I don't think that's tangible. I don't think like
mhm.
he's gonna not only retain his support but get more support going for another 4 years and trying to become like
Yeah,
a dictator for life, because there's a
yeah,
significant amount of people that defend him on the basis that yeah, they're like, oh, the election was
yeah,
stolen, he should have been president or what have you. But the second you're talking about going beyond the legal amount of like years you can be president,
Mhm.
then at that point there is no argument there, and there's a lot of like Americans that would be very against that idea and be like, that's now a dictator, that's a king. That's like,
Mhm.
we don't
but
have kings.
yeah, but like
I,
given that we have like a distortion of media that's happening, especially in January 6th, and you have like a lot of people, institutions that defend Trump. Even in January 6th, there's a
mhm.
lot of figures on the right who defending Trump, defended Trump.
Mhm.
Like if, if, I'm not entertaining this because I hate this. This is worse. One of my worst nightmare. But like the fact that like if you want like to affirm yourself as a dictator, you need one step, which is controlling the military institution in the United States. It's not hard to control the military institution in the United States. It's not hard, you know.
What do you
Any
mean by
country
that?
like
What do you mean that it's not hard in that way in the United States?
it's not hard in the sense that you can elect like the president of the United States. He can like elect like generals that are following him, yes
Mhm.
man, because apparently Trump, right? He need yes man now. He need like people who are in his second term. He need yes man. He doesn't need neocons anymore. You
Mhm.
know, the days where neocons were hate them. I hate neocons because neocons, like, they are like warmongers, like they invade any country. But at least the
They
neocons
have
know
some
the
sense of rule
institution.
of law. Yeah.
Yeah, they know the institutions. They know like how to wiggle, and
Mhm.
like they understand the institution. The people that Trump elect are bunch of like, they don't have any political experience. They are like
Mhm.
retarded. I'm sorry. Like they are like, they are yes men.
It's true.
That's
All of
it.
his lawyers are not very good at their jobs.
Yeah, I would imagine
Yeah.
he'd have less neocons now in his
Mhm.
establishment than he
Yeah.
did when he was first president.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like it's, I feel at this point, there's a little distinction here, which is like these neocons are just moving to the Democratic Party. Like Democratic Party used to
Yeah.
be the anti-war party that
Mhm.
was like, we're questioning NATO, all of that kind of stuff, and now they're like, fuck yeah, we need NATO. We love the stability of Europe. That's one of the most
Mhm.
important things to the Democratic Party, is talking about the stability of another continent, and then
Mhm.
talking about how we need to engage and intervene in every single conflict. We are the world police again. And it's like that the neocons have just moved along, changed
Yep.
the what you were talking about, the structure, the stability, all that stuff. They just adopted what the Democrats believe, as long as the Democrats allow them to still make money off of the
Mhm.
same
Yeah.
processes. And then so it's like, that is the opposition to like Donald Trump. But then, with the Donald Trump, just because he's shedding some of those neocons and such, I still have like a skepticism of like the idea that the military is like in the United States is like that easy to mobilize by the president in some way that goes against the people.
Yeah. I think the really scary thing is honestly just the number of truly brainwashed people, um, because that's some percentage of those people could become part of some kind of like not super effective, but some kind of like paramilitary something. Like I don't know how far they would go. I don't know what Trump would push them to do, because it's like
Yeah.
if he can't get a third term, he'll probably be trying to have a sway in politics. I mean, he'll probably stay in politics like till he dies or gets bored of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
Um, and there's a lot of people that he could sway, and I do worry that some level of violence could increase from those group, because when you have this like massively brainwashed, just it's a group of people who are following, basically they're following their bliss, following their passion. They're like, this, if I believe in this guy, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. I can believe whatever the fuck I want. I don't have to care about what's real. We can show up and start yelling about things. Like, everybody loves that. Everybody loves being able to choose what they believe, unhindered by the facts. Everybody loves being able to yell about stuff and feel like victims, and or all
Yeah.
boomers love that anyway.
But also,
Um,
like, it was being mentioned earlier, like Egypt and stuff. It's like Americans are not willing to sacrifice
our
the
comfort
same as I
for
imagine as individuals during the Arab Spring. It's like
Mhm.
Americans are like we live pretty like bougie lives. Like
Mhm.
we're not
Yeah.
living under the same stress and quality of life
Revolution
issues
means
that.
deprivation, and that's a tough pill for.
Yeah, and so as soon as you talk
Yeah.
about as soon as you talk about somebody relying on passion and fear mongering and anger to get people
Mhm.
to destroy the stability that the country brings,
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's like I think you're going to see a large disconnect between the people who
Mhm.
don't want to sacrifice and the ones that do. And I think a
Yeah.
large amount of the people in the United States are just, moderates that
Mm.
are either disaffected and don't
Mhm.
vote, or they are just moderates and the last thing they want is to not know like where their checks are coming from, what's going to happen for the next several months, what's happening with the stock market. They're not going to sit there and be like, you know what, I'm taking up arms. I'm going to do what the president is saying. I
Mhm.
believe this is the time. The time is right. Because Americans really aren't suffering to the same level as the rest of the world. Like
Mhm.
we're talking about our so-called recovered economy, and look at where the rest of the world is. Have
Yeah.
they recovered?
Oh my
No.
God! I was looking at some people I knew were talking about maybe going to Japan, and so I was like looking at the exchange rate, and
Yeah.
from when I went there like years ago, oh my God, we're up like 30% compared to the
Damn.
yen, like compared to where we were like 5 years ago. It's like insane
It's
how well
crazy.
America is doing, like compared to the world in terms of GDP. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going great. That's not the true factor of anything. But
Yeah,
like
but Japan,
Yeah.
from my
when it comes to
understanding,
that,
has
like
a
holy shit.
ridiculous amount of banks, and they're like one of the richest countries in the world and stuff. So that's
Hmm.
kind of like. But I also heard that they're having some like big decline issues. I'm not a big Japan guy because it's like
Hmm.
it brings out all the weebs who are like
Yeah, yeah.
political for one country. So, but
I
yeah,
mean, so
so
the
that's
the
surprising.
the issue, if MAGA people, MAGA
The MAGA
MAGA,
people.
MAGA, if
Yeah.
MAGA people start doing kind of I don't know what to call it. It's not vigilante. It's not paramilitary. Just kind of like violence en
Support.
masse,
No, yeah.
and
It's kind
then
of like so.
and then
It's kind of like
Antifa
Civil
people
unrest.
unrest,
Mhm.
and then Antifa people come to fight them. Then we have some kind of general escalating violence, and the danger there is the kind of like police state clampdown and an increased like conservative move toward law and order. That's definitely a dangerous thing in terms of just
That's more
um,
real. That's more of
yeah,
a real risk.
expansion of NSA, police state, Patriot Act, um, clamping down on political freedoms. Those are the kind of things that I think are pretty plausible
Mm.
issues that could play out. That kind of every party will be pushed toward. Whoever's elected, there'll be some kind of like law and order push if there's general escalations of violence.
Yeah. I see it as like the the so-called center left, but they're pretty like right wing still.
Hmm.
Those moderates and such, that political party, the Democratic Party and such, they create the reasoning that makes people like Donald Trump extremely popular,
Mm-hmm.
and then they try to pull people into their party and say that the worst threat that could happen to the country is like Donald Trump in order to play this lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you really sit back and you see what's going on, it's kind of like um what is what is the future that we're supposed to have even beyond those 4 years? Like, let's say Donald Trump, they all they're setting us up for is fear mongering over Donald Trump to
Mm-hmm.
instill more power in the political parties we both have.
Yep.
So long after Donald Trump gets his last term, if he wins this next presidency, and then he leaves,
Mm-hmm.
they both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party will have a whole new slew of powers that the individuals in the country have given them and that we become accustomed to that just will always remain, and it's just the Patriot Act all over again. It's like people are already okay with the idea of not having, like, on one side not having any like primary debates, the other side having more debates than we've ever had for a political party, and then they're okay with the idea of like sparse campaigning, sparse media
Mm-hmm.
coverage on one side, the other person being deplatformed. They're okay with lawfare at this level of like, all the cases being kept in a cryogenic chamber for like
Mm-hmm.
several years and being promised as soon as he's out of office, New York's going to do something about him. And then all of a sudden, all cases unloaded at the same time, convenient dates, all set during the time of the campaign. It's like, and people are okay with it because they're told,
Yeah.
we're fighting the Nazis. Like, they're told, well, this is, Donald Trump, so like it's all okay for this one man. And then as soon as this one man's gone, it's not like those powers go away. It's not like
Exactly.
this is not going to be a precedent where they're like, well, in the future, just like the Nazis, in the future, they're going to be like, well, remember Donald Trump? This is just another Donald Trump, and we need to use the same tools that were effective before.
Yeah. It still blows my mind that the Patriot Act is still there. Like
Hmm.
it's like day in day out. It blows my mind that it's still there because it's like the threat was like Osama bin Laden. The threat was Al Qaeda, and the threat was the Taliban. And those aren't like things that like we haven't had a good fear mongering cycle about you know real credible any kind of terrorist activity in America. We're worried about like our own school kids shooting each other and shooting up places like old people and school kids shooting up places like it's mostly just homegrown terrorism, but none of that's even Islamic. So it's like, why do we
Yeah.
still have this thing? Why is nobody? It feels like one of those things that it should be just like a vestigial appendage that just falls off after a while. But I don't even see anybody campaigning to get rid of the Patriot Act. It feels like that's just like an obvious. Oh, I actually do have on this topic, a very important question from the chat. When you shower, are you supposed to use body wash on top of soap, or is it fine to just use soap? Yeah, just use soap. I don't.
I
What?
use
What do you need?
soap, and I use a bar of soap, and then I have like one of these, like, I guess it's Japanese. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
Japanese or something else, but I have like one of those
Who's calling people a
these,
weeb?
it's like a squeegee thing, and you just
Oh,
like you
the
rub it.
the rough like cloth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff is so
And I
good for
got it
exfoliating.
because online they were like, "Oh my God, this is incredible! It's the
Your
greatest thing
skin feels
ever."
so smooth.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
do that
yeah.
all the time because I have sensitive skin, but when I do that, it feels so smooth. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I do that shit, and you're right. Like, if you have any sort of like pimples or some shit, bro, it hurts. But like
Hmm.
outside of that, those areas, I mean, that shit's like gas.
Yeah.
And then that's it. I mean, just don't be one of those people that like just like washes your pits and stuff, and then like just like lets the water drip down the legs. It's
Hmm.
like
Well,
the
oh
back of your
wait,
knees are gonna be nasty.
this is the thing. Okay, so like the first time I heard this, I just cracked up because the way it was phrased is like do you wash your legs? It's like I was like, does it make me think? It's like, wait a minute, like do I wash my legs? Like I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like you know the main four areas. I just watched the George Carlin thing about this, or whatever, like the prostitute shower or prostitute like sponge bath or whatever, right? The pits, pits front back. groin and ass. Like that. Those are the main four areas you need to hit. But it's like I definitely don't like scrub my legs every time I take a shower.
Uh,
Um, like
yeah, I do.
you do?
I guess it's a difference thing is that like I'm black, so it's like being ashy is like
Mm.
it's not
But
only
that's more like exfoliating,
emasculating.
right? That's more exfoliating than
It's
like
it's intersectionality.
yeah.
You're not just disappointing men. You're disappointing women. You're disappointing black people. There's just extra harm done when you have darker skin and you're ashy, and so that just transforms into a shame culture in which like I just can't have any like dead skin that shows. So it's like I mean yeah like I gotta wash my legs because the worst thing that could happen is like all right you wash your legs and then you go somewhere and then your leg god forbid brushes up against something and
Mm.
there's any like
And it
showcase
pulls.
dead skin all of a sudden it's like oh wow you're just ashy piece of shit and so it's like you gotta moisturize like shea
Mm-hmm.
butter everything and it's like honestly man um it fucking sucks but there's nothing it's just one of those things where it's like
It's just one of the burdens that the black community has to bear.
I
Is
think
where's
everyone
my
it's one of
next
those
shea
things I
butter
think
coming from?
it's one of those things I think everybody has to deal with. It's kind of like think about how like there's this common talking point of like white people have terrible skin or something
Mm.
and like black people play at that and say oh blood. Well, I think a part of it is if you look at the palest like white people
Well,
like
you can't
because
tell
of
so easily if you're ashy if you've got like really pale skin too.
I'd say it's like yeah, that's true. But I'd say like if you with the palest people, it's like they have to use like
Oh
sunscreen and all this kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
so they end
100%.
up having like great skin if they keep that routine up
Mm-hmm.
later on in life because they put more effort into skincare. And I don't think it's necessarily as genetic as people make it out to be. I just
Mm-hmm.
just believe that the societies we have kind of make it so it's like black people are feeling so subconscious. They're doing all this stuff for their skin. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's a large amount of white people who are not like the palest that just let themselves get sunburnt and do all of that kind of stuff and don't
Mm.
adequately take care of the skin. I think it's like, and I think it's not really. It is accessible for everybody. It's like something everybody
Mm-hmm.
should do. Like everyone should utilize this stuff.
It's the two genders, sunscreen and lotion. Pick your fighter.
Oh shit! I had
Hmm.
that problem with fucking the what's the shit you put on your lips? The little Burt Bees shit.
Lip balm, yeah,
Yeah, I hate
beeswax.
that.
Lip
I
balm.
hate that shit. It's one of those things that's like gum. It's like once you have it, you
Mm.
just keep using it, and you don't know just in how much it is. You keep
Well, you
fucking
got
with
to
your
be
lips.
careful. Some of those actually like dry out your lips overall. I think Burt's Bees is good because that mostly just kind of holds it in and protects. I have one thing. I forget the brand, but that stuff works really well. Just take like a tiny bit, comes in a tube. Um, but yeah, you got to be careful with lip balm because sometimes that ends up drying out. Like the same thing. Like if you lick your lips, the
Yeah,
saliva actually dries it out
because of the
more
Yeah.
than it
bacteria.
helps,
Because
even though it
there's
feels
bacteria.
like
Oh damn,
yeah.
that
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense. I never done. I just thought like, damn, it's something to do with like. I don't know why. I was just like, oh, it has something to do with acidity. I never thought beyond that, but the bacteria thing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. The bacteria actually there's an exfoliated lip. There's multiple exfoliated lip. There's actilocholitis, which is like kind of like inflammation, right? And sometimes like people who are like in the winter, sorry, in the winter, find trouble, opening and closing their mouth, the
Hmm.
lips, because like it's very hard because like due to stress, either stress, due to like winter, when there's a dry cold, like
Oh yeah.
hitting your lips, right?
Well, it's dry
And due
inside
to
from the
saliva.
heat. It's like cold wind on
Yeah,
your face. Yeah.
yeah,
Listen,
yeah,
that means like if you're licking ice cream, you're like
Mm.
exfoliating ice cream.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh,
So
Yeah.
is a spoon is a tool for exfoliating ice cream?
Yes. No, no. When you lick the food, you're exfoliating the spoon.
No, I had that when I was in the middle school. I had lips like exfoliation, which
Hmm.
actually a horrible thing because you cannot eat spicy food. You
Oh my
cannot
god,
like
it makes them so sensitive. You can do that with
yeah
like what is it? Like honey and like or like sugar. You can make like a sugar balm, like sugar and oil. You can like exfoliate your lips,
Sugar
but the
scrub.
sugar scrub, but it gets so sensitive. If your
yeah
lips are like cut and chapped and stuff, I never do
yeah
that. I just moisturize, so it's like
yeah.
when it
I
splits in the
have a
middle.
Spanish.
Ooh.
I have my mother like bought me in when she was in Spain. She bought me like a whole pack of I think balsam. That
Mm,
is like very like good. It's a Spanish like medicine that is
mm.
very good actually. You know,
Hey,
She got
welcome
you that.
Void.
Hey, what's
What's
up?
up?
Void. How are you, Void?
Hey, what's up? Y'all getting along in here?
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about the end of democracy and lip balm and
Yeah, Marcellus Wallace was just telling us about how his mother smuggles illegal product into the country for his lips.
No, no, actually not. She's like I was desperate. Come on, man. I was very desperate. We don't have
Yeah,
like
yeah,
good
most
medicine in
addicts
Libya.
are. Most addicts are.
Yeah, we don't have good medicine in Libya. Like we don't have pharmacies that provide medicine,
Medicine,
good
okay.
quality medicine. You know?
Oh, you're Libyan?
Yeah.
Damn.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
Like,
the way you said that with like no follow
it's
up.
been,
It's like you're
it's just
Libyan?
been like
Damn.
a decade. It's like been a decade, and I haven't heard any good news. It's just sad, you know. It's like I don't know. I'm not saying anything. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah.
my mom
It's
is
very sad.
Sudanese. If
But
you wanna make fun of me, my mom is Sudanese. It's not a
n-
great look for them either right now.
no, no, actually not. Like I'm very happy. I'm very happy that like we I'm kind of happy, even if it is shit. But I'm kind of happy. I'm not complaining. I complaining for it's not like my thing. It's not part of my personality. I believe that the world will be very good.
I'm gonna tell you
Like
then you can't survive in New York where I'm from then because like complaining is like what New Yorkers do as a pastime. Like
Mm.
think of every New York comic, comedian, or any New Yorker you've ever liked in your life, and they just complain.
I was thinking
yeah,
about Larry
I don't
David.
know.
Jews love to complain like nobody else. It's called
Man.
kvetching.
And the
Wow.
funniest ones,
Oh
if they
yeah.
write. Ooh.
Or like Rodney Dangerfield. Oh my god.
I gotta. Speaking of which, I gotta get some food. It's in my fridge. It's already prepared. I'll be right back.
All right.
When I debated conservative about Israel and Palestine, he said to me, "You Arabs are complaining a lot. Like if you're chilled, you're actually like will be cool. But you're complaining a lot, and the fact like no, we complain about like things like that affect us, right?
Of
Like
course you're
we complain
complaining. You're
about
Semites. All Semites love to complain.
yeah. Ah,
Yeah,
Void.
invited Ball is here, Socrates. He's been very insightful into Middle Eastern politics, especially Libya.
Yeah, I definitely haven't talked about Libya, but I appreciate the
That's a
confidence and
lot.
the setting me up for
Void,
failure.
What's up?
Void. No, no, I'm talking about. That's a very long discussion. Very long discussion. That's like
Yeah, yeah,
very long.
but I invited you over here because I wanted you to see, like, not everybody thinks alike,
Mm.
over in Israel
Yeah,
or otherwise, and that's kind of important to point out to
Mm.
people. Not
yeah.
everybody is one huge monolith of a hive mind.
Mm. Oh wait,
Yeah, I
Marcellus,
think.
are you living in Israel or what's your Marcel?
No, no, Libya, Libya.
Libya.
No, no,
Oh
I
wait,
live in Libya.
Who is
No,
which?
hell no. I don't
Wait.
live under a stolen property. I don't live on under
Mm.
this like stolen property. I
Mhm.
think, I don't live that. I feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable feeling, you know, to live under, a stolen property that that is a stolen property, but you don't care.
Mhm.
Like you don't care about it. It's kind of like the guilt that you have in the United States in
Yeah, I
terms
was
of,
gonna
you
say. I
know,
mean, I think, unironically, this is like a huge reason of why a lot of Americans support Israel is because we see that commonality. It's like, oh, yeah, we genocided our indigenous people like generations ago. Like you guys are going through that right now. Yeah, it's kind of rough. Like especially, nowadays there's all this news coverage. When you blow up a village full of people, it's like, you get a lot of hate mail for it. Just weather it. You'll get through it. I'm sure you'll finish, killing most of them soon.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think like
Brutal.
liberals don't care about. They care a little bit about black people, black
mm,
community, but they don't care at all about indigenous people.
mm,
Stop saying that liberals care
mm,
about indigenous people. They don't care. They don't care a lot. They don't care. They don't care at all. You know. And that's the problem. I met a lot of people in Alaska who's like trying to learn the language of like, I think some tribe in Alaska, right?
mm,
And there's a guy, you probably met him, Void, in the cathedral,
mm,
right? He's
Oh,
from
who?
Alaska.
mm.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. I talked to him recently. Loser juice, right? Something like
Yeah,
that.
Lucer Juice, yeah. He's from Alaska and he's a very good guy,
Yeah, I
very
talked to him
genuine guy.
recently.
Yeah, a very genuine guy. And he tried to learn this old language, and it's kind of like, you know, like we have the same thing in Amazighi language. We try to like after the revolution, we try to kind of institute this language to our like
Hmm.
curriculum in the government and
Oh,
in
wow,
the
that's
state. And
amazing. That's an
yeah,
indigenous language that people are actually learning in schools.
yeah,
That's
yeah, we
that's
try to do
incredible.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to do that. Some like reactionary people in Libya, they try
Mm,
to like, trying to kind of do their thing, trying
mm.
to the same, the same. Every reactionary is the same,
Very niche.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
it's the same, like, it's the opposite in right in like in Haiti or in Ukraine or different places, like for so long the
yeah,
indigenous, or in Ireland, um
yeah, yeah.
yeah, trying to
And
wipe
the same
out,
thing,
or
yeah,
in
what's
America
happened in
and
America?
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah. What would happen in America is that they will like a lot of lefties will introduce this simple idea that like we learn like indigenous language or native language, which is a very like some scientists knew about this language. It's not dead language.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to this Alaska guy, you know uh, and he's like well known about this language. The language has grammatical rule. It
Mm-hmm.
has like more sophisticated than English language, right? It has more like it's better than English,
Mm-hmm.
right? But like I think that like there's a kind of like hate for like indigenous people, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like lost to translation in terms of history and kind of like instituting their language in curriculum, which would be the correct position, I
Mm-hmm.
think. I think
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think America must like do that, must institute another language rather than English, second
I
language,
mean, at the very
right?
least, it would mean like hiring people who are indigenous to teach their culture broadly. Like that would be an amazing thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
That would erode
yeah.
American values.
It would bring
That
up a
would
lot
make
of
sense.
awkward conversations around a lot of dinner tables. It's like, wait, so whatever happened with all those indigenous people? Like, it's like,
Like,
little Timmy, you don't need to worry about that.
they don't
Um,
even wanna. They don't even wanna keep teaching you about black people. So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's kind of it's kind of a bummer of a conversation, to be honest.
Mhm.
So, if we could just
Eh,
like stop talking about that, maybe.
yeah, yeah.
we saw
I would
Like,
I would
hey,
rather watch Reading Rainbow than Roots. It's a little more upbeat. It's still got
Yeah.
LeVar. It's still got LeVar.
We treated the indigenous terribly, and it was horrible, and it was all in the past, and you know they're wiped out, and you know don't think about them anymore. And it's like, oh, you know they still exist.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like,
still
oh,
still
really?
fucking here.
Um,
Yeah,
don't think
yeah,
about that. We solved that
yeah,
stuff.
like for example, like in the civil rights movement, after the civil rights, right? If they try to like kind of do this historical reductionism in terms of Malcolm X, right? And who is he, you know? And kind of like said, no, he's a black, but he's not a Muslim, you know? You can like he's a black, but he's not a Muslim, you know? He's not Muslim. The Muslim fact he's like he's the fact that he's a Muslim is relevant and these kind of things and it's kind of like undermining like the black Muslim community. It's kind of like pushing it aside, right? It's kind of like this. They I hate that. Like they do that, right? It's kind of like pushing aside like a historical fact, right? Some conservative I debate they actually like skeptic about like whether Malcolm X is a Muslim or not,
It's such a
which is
weird
like
like
Well, I
thing
mean,
for
like
them to
yeah,
be. Yeah.
it's concern trolling because it's like
Yeah.
if you really think about it, it's like Malcolm X originally was like what they thought the prophet was like the Elijah Muhammad, and so it's like
Mm,
it's clearly not in line with what the majority, I imagine, of the Islamic world would believe. But it's not like he didn't go to Saudi Arabia. It's not like the guy didn't like do a pilgrimage. It's not
mm,
like he
mm,
still doesn't like even if he is following what would be believed as like a false belief, it's like it's not like he's still not devout,
mm-hmm.
and it's not like these individuals actually care about Islam. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
controlling.
yeah,
Or the black community
yeah,
for that matter.
yeah. Yeah, but like I feel it's a weird argument to do it. It kind of like undermine the black Muslims, right?
It's
They
a
kind of
weird
like
hill to
pushed
die on
aside.
because shouldn't conservatives just be like, yeah, he was a Muslim and that's why he was so radical and that's why we had to kill him. And
Yeah,
they were like, well, why'd you
it's
have to kill
weird.
MLK? It's like, don't worry about that.
Yeah, don't worry about them. Like MLK, we love MLK, but like there's a lot of like I don't know, I don't know. It's weird. It's like a lot of conservatives like do these kind of things. I don't know why, but like it's something that I I kind of noticed, you know?
Wait, I'm trying to was Kwame Ture Muslim or
I don't remember.
Wait, who is that?
Muhammad Ali was Muslim. Mike
no
Tyson is a
no
Muslim.
We're talking about Kwame Ture.
yeah, Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael. Um, he had like a Pan African thing going on, but I don't know. I'm looking at his Wikipedia; it doesn't say anything about religion.
Good.
Yeah, it's like, well, what religion was he that you had to kill him? It's like, oh, he was getting uh, black and white workers talking to each other. That's the worst religion, most dangerous one. Oh, here, nice. We've got somebody with some information to add to the conversation. Should never embrace mental delusion because it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Huh, okay. Islam is the religion of Satan. I feel bad for them, but I still love them. I thought Satan wasn't he a Christian? Because, like,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I read about him in, like, the New Testament. Um, I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Tough call. Yeah. What does it say on his wiki?
Satan,
Wikipedia,
Satan.
Satan, religion. Let's see. Wikipedia, also known as the
Yeah,
devil.
yeah. I
Islam.
I have a breakfast with Satan.
What does he usually go for? Does he go for like cereal or like pancakes?
I think pancakes.
Pancakes?
Mhm.
Typical.
Yeah.
part of a complete breakfast.
It's kind of like when I was in the farm, far away from Tripoli because I have a farm, right? And there's my neighbor, my neighbor he's like he's 40 years old and he's like very old and he has, children, right? And the children, play,
Ew.
and
Ew.
some of his daughters like come to us, and she said like, is God is part of an animation or something, or is he in the animation or something? And we start laughing, we start kind of laughing.
Yeah, he's the main. He's the main villain of the next phase of the MCU.
Yeah,
They've just been building him up this whole time.
Satan
yeah.
plus Galacticus teaming up. And then Jesus plus the Silver Surfer.
Oh, you heard about that? About how they're gonna include the Silver Surfer now and Galactus and like the into the MCU?
It sounds kind of cool, but I don't know. MCU for like the last few years just looks so bad. I don't have like it's honestly at a certain point it felt like a job to try to keep up with all the new movies. And then at some point it just felt like not remotely worth it because so many of them were just so bad.
His jobs pay you money, and this job just makes you
Just
lose money.
drains your money. Yeah. Yeah, I came back from my 8 hours of work watching two Marvel movies. Um, what I have to show for it? Oh, I lost $100 on two tickets and two popcorns and a Coke. Oh.
Yeah, I'd say like that sounds about right. Except I mean, it's getting more and more crazy. It's like those movie ticket prices just be going lower and lower because they're so desperate. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you
I
guys
remember
seen
it going,
Dune?
yeah, Dune, the first one.
Oh, dude, I'm
Yeah,
so
because Dune
pumped
2
for the new
just came
Dune.
out.
Don't tell me
I
anything
haven't
about
seen
it.
it. Don't
I
say
haven't
anything
seen
about
it.
anyone.
Don't say. I
I'm
haven't
just
watched
saying
the
it's probably
trailers.
good.
Don't tell me fucking anything about it. Yeah,
It's good then, right?
I'm not even listening. In my head, I'm going la la la.
Just know, since I don't spend that time reading the books, that time is spent making sure I got some like heavy weights being lifted. All right, so that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt if I have to hurt you. That's all I'm saying, man. Don't spoil nothing.
I'm
Right?
just I'm
I'm
gonna
not trying
show
to
up at the
read
theater,
27 books.
high out of my mind, ready to go.
I'm lazier.
IMAX.
I'm gonna show up on my couch about a month and a half after, like 90
Oh,
days, whatever. Open up HBO Max.
you're gonna have a tough job dodging memes for like a month straight. That's gonna be hard. They're gonna be everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's not like, it's not gonna be like the worst thing in the world. That's the cope talking. That's the cope. It's gonna be pretty bad. Well, I mean, hopefully Tucker Carlson interviews Zendaya or something, so it just like takes the like the news articles out of the way, so I don't have to think about Dune like that. It's the worst when it's like the only thing people are talking about. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah, I was just looking at run times for movies. And it's like Iron Man 1, honestly 1, 2, and 3 was like straight 2 hours. And then like Civil War was 2.5, and then Endgame was 3 hours. And I feel like it just didn't go down after that.
Endgame was so boring too, because like
Oh
the whole
my God.
beginning was just like sad. We lost. We're doing the whole subversive thing of like we've just lost, and everyone in the theaters is like, "All right, we get it. You lost. When are you starting to win again?"
Yeah, I don't know.
I like M. Night Shyamalan, like movies about superhero, you know?
Like
I don't know.
what was it? Unstoppable? Was that what was
And
the
yeah, it was some
Unbreakable.
shit like that. The one with the guy with the bones, and then Mr. Glass.
Bruce
and,
Bruce Willis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
He died, right? Or
And
am I
Wait,
what?
making
what?
that shit up? He died, right? Or am I just making that shit up?
What? I think he was like in a bad way, but
I thought he died
wait.
recently, but I could be like really fucked up if like that's not the
No.
case.
What? No, he's not fucking dead. He's 68.
Oh. Oh, okay. All right. It was just a hoax. All right. He'll die in a few years. Not yet. That was just the pre-order. I just
He
pre-ordered that.
has frontotemporal dementia, some form of aphasia, like speech
Yeah, he has
disorder.
the same shit they said Wendy
Um,
Williams has now.
oh shit. Okay. Oh yeah, Wendy Williams. Huh. Aphasia, dementia. Yeah. No, but he's not fucking dead though. Neither of them are dead. They're both
Yeah.
battling same disease. 2-on-1. I think they should be okay.
You know that Jimmy Carter has been in a hospice for like over a year now, and he survived his wife, who was like his longest companion in his
Mm.
whole life, and his wife ended up dying while he outlived
Was in
her in the
hospice.
hospice. Yeah,
This
and
dude
he's
is
like
99
99.
years old.
Yeah, he made it to one of
99.
his birthdays, and he quite possibly could make it to his 100th birthday, being the first president in United States history, I believe, to
Mm.
make it to the year 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
The things
incredible.
these people do for legacy. I would just, kick the bucket at that point. It's like
You
your
know
wife's
what?
dead, fuck it.
You know what? Jimmy Carter, I view him one of the least president that are not like interventionist and these
Mm.
kind of things,
Yeah, Jimmy
right?
Carter was based.
Least
Yeah, he was
intervention.
based.
What do you? Whoa! We gotta roll it back here. This is the guy that took the Shah of Iran and then just like harbored them in the United States. What was the guy that?
Yeah, but like I don't know, he's the least of them. He's the least worst of them,
But he's
because like
he's so interventionist though. Even after he was president, he spent like the rest of his life, him and his wife, running foundations where they just traveled and pushed political aims. Like he visited Vladimir
Mm.
Putin like 4 years ago to deliver his own opinions and back to Joseph Biden. That's how political he was in his
Mm.
90s.
I
And
mean,
like he frequently visits different countries. He's involved in Israeli aims in Israeli politics.
what? Yeah, what are his aims in Israeli politics?
He believes that like there's a lot of botched efforts by the
Mm.
United States in the Middle East and particularly Israel. And from my
Yeah.
understanding, he really believes that like he could have done more, and so
Mm.
a part of his life goal is like wanting to build a lasting peace
Mm.
where there's like a two-state solution type
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, that sounds pretty based. Yeah, Clinton kind of
yeah,
fucked some of that up. Um,
that's sounds very based as like a first like step
mm.
for me, right? But he did fucked up shit, but he's the least one. Compare him to Bush
You know,
or
on the
compare
scale
him to
of
fucking
presidents.
Reagan.
Yeah.
Like he's the least one. The least one, at least.
I think the most frustrating thing consistently for me in politics is the fact that somehow Republicans have like in their mind and when they talk about things they've somehow like disowned George Bush. Like somehow that wasn't them. Like that shit makes me more frustrated than anything when they talk. It's like, oh, Biden getting us out of Iraq. It's like, okay, who got us into Iraq? Like who made that a thing? Talk about like, oh, we're spending all this money. They talk about like, oh, the Democrats are too interventionist. It's like, okay, but we didn't spend trillions of dollars in. I guess the Democrats kind of signed on to that, but like
Yeah, the Democrats and
they signed
the
on pretty
Democrats were
hard,
so much
but
like
they
the
didn't initiate
Republicans.
it.
They were so much like the Republicans on a
Yeah.
lot of those issues. But I would say that the big disconnect is just that the the right wing populist movement right now is a faux movement. Like they
Hmm.
pretend they have beliefs they don't have.
It's like,
So
oh,
they
you've been
pretend that they're
anti-interventionist for 2 minutes, and you're like,
exactly.
yeah.
They act like they're anti-interventionist and they act like they're anti-neocon,
Uh huh.
but they don't actually understand neocons, and they're okay. They're only not okay with neocons in post. They
Hmm.
can't even they can't tell they don't even know what neocons are, so they can't tell you who's the neocon.
Hmm.
They can only tell you who's the neocon after they're in the
Yeah.
administration and they're fucked up. Whereas I can just tell you
Yeah.
who the neocons are because like they all have credentials. They've been involved in our politics for years. They're like, it's not like they're picking up like 20-year-old neocons. It's
Yeah.
like, and it's like, and that's the disconnect is like they fashion themselves off of that like Ron Paul movement. It's kind of disgusting. It's like they take the scraps of that Ron Paul libertarian movement, give him no credit,
Yeah.
give that movement no credit, and then pretend that they're also like anti-war and such, and then just bring up China, Iran, and then they'll just go crazy. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like you know, mommy, can we have some Ron Paul? It's like we've got Ron Paul at home, Rand Paul.
think about the fact that like they view how they talk about China, Russia, and Iran, and it tells you everything you need to know because it's like, okay, Iran is for historical reasons antagonistic towards the United States.
For
Same
some
with
reason,
Russia.
I'm not quite sure
But
why.
why are you grouping China with like in that same sphere and a level of like animosity towards the United States? It's like what is going on in your head? It's like when did the Chinese like fund
Wasn't there like
terrorist
Pearl
group
Harbor or
or
something? Wasn't that?
like oh you mean the Japanese the
Sure,
people
yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah. Yeah, what did I say?
yeah. The people that we helped fight the fascists apparently, and then we helped some of them get into power, and then rebuilt with them. You know, it's like the Americans, the ones that definitely defeated Nazism, and you know that's why like we hire Nazis and we still work with them, and we have Nazi problems. Yeah, like
Yeah.
where's that Chinese Naziism? It's almost like the countries that actually fought Nazis and were like, we never want to see this again. It's almost like they're still fighting Nazis. And
We're
they want
bigger. Yeah, we have a bigger issue with them than actual Nazis. Like Russia fought the Nazis. They're communist. I'm not so sure about that. China fought the Nazis. Not so sure about that. Uh,
I
it's
think they don't care. I think the right don't care in America about like foreign policy, you know? Don't
I mean,
care.
except as it affects. I mean, I think there's a very straightforward like China economically is doing well. They're a world power. They're a military power. I think these are the kinds of things that um, that
in
conservatives
order
care
for
about
them to
now.
want in order for them to want to care about politics, it has to be presented in such a way where
It's
the
it's
United
gonna fuck
States
their
can
shit up.
be against others
Hmm.
and that the United States can be a winner, and it has to be gamified.
Yeah.
And so like
And it
without
needs to be zero
China,
sum. They need to
yeah,
lose. It's not even
so
about us winning. Somebody needs to lose.
yeah, without a China, like then like they need the Russia, they need these
Hmm.
enemies because if it was just unipolar, they would just let the government decide everything, and they unless it impacted your wallet, they wouldn't care. So it's like they need it to be gamified for them to care about foreign policy. They don't actually care what's going on in any of those countries. All they care about is like, okay, just get to the point. Who do I support?
Hmm.
And who's benefiting the United States? Who is the enemy? We'll burn them, kill them, do whatever. It's justified because America is the world police, and I'm okay with
Yeah.
that when it benefits me. And then when it doesn't benefit me, I'm an isolationist that thinks that we're just like any other country, and why do we have to do something? It's really crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's Game of Thrones
Hmm.
mentality. Game of Thrones, you know? Game of Thrones.
Yeah. It's that Lannister shit.
Yeah.
I had I had a thought the other day. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Um, I was trying to imagine like so when it comes to like politics in America and talking about like background. So we're like take down Confederate statues. Slavery is bad. Whatever all this, and it feels like there's a lot of people who take slavery was bad, like saying that like really personally. Um, and for liberals, people on the left, it's like, look, this wasn't your individual fault that there was slavery. If you're somebody in the South or whatever, anywhere, like, but this history was bad. Um, but I'm trying to imagine it's like if you grew up in the South and you did learn about the Confederacy as like your legacy, then at an interpersonal level, you go to college for the first time, you leave your little town, whatever, and people are telling you like, "Whoa, that shit's fucked up." Like, I don't even really want you like talking about that. It's kind of a bummer, talking about like, the Confederacy or like any of this stuff, or running a rebel flag or something like that. For somebody at like an individual level, it might feel like people are coming at you kind of personally. I wonder if that's where that comes from. Like, does that make sense? I don't know.
It makes perfect sense. It's like they care. It's because there's the contradiction is that that they believe that the sins of the father and all that kind of stuff can't be
Mm-hmm.
passed down, but they want all of the positives. So
Yeah.
like they want inheritance, they want all that money, they want all of that legacy. So
Mm-hmm.
all of the legacy
Yeah.
of slavery and all of the money that comes from it that is good, they want to inherit, but they don't want to inherit any of the flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring up the contradiction, then they try to showcase how time has passed. And
Mm-hmm.
their argument only, the reason they use that argument is the argument only gets stronger with every passing day.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that was like years ago. Okay, that was so many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you see that certain communities have it right. Like the for instance, like look at the Jewish community. Have they let people forget about the Holocaust?
No.
And no. And then are they still benefiting off that today? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And yet look at so it showcases that yes, like if there was an atrocity committed against you, even if it was many years in the past, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
it only benefits you to keep it in the keep it
Keep it
in the
living. Keep it a
conversation
living memory.
because
Yeah.
yeah, because it only will reap some level of benefit to you. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe you can see the detriment of slavery in America because they're talking. I was listening to this economist Michael Hudson talk about it, where it's like we live in he was calling it a apartheid economy because he was saying that we live in a bifurcated system
Mm-hmm.
where if you look at the people who are able to get houses and able to pass on wealth and are able and the people who are the larger creditors, the people who own the majority of stocks,
Mm-hmm.
there's a throughput where race is heavily involved versus the individuals who owe the most debt are the most burdened and then weren't able to get cheap houses earlier on in their lives, in their families' lives, and
Mm-hmm.
that generational wealth couldn't pass by. And it's only more and more clear, and that is completely in contrast to what these people say. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like the great contradiction is the belief that in America the relationship between creditors and debtors is like a debt is owed, you have to pay it. You just
Mm-hmm.
have to pay it. Yet when it comes to these types of atrocities, there's this arbitrary line of the debt doesn't have to be paid because it's
Mm-hmm.
so long ago. And it's like, okay, is that really the case? Okay, so then leave China alone.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, oh, okay, if that's the case, then leave any country that committed an atrocity against you alone. If that's the case, stop holding grudges. If that's the case, go call your mom. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't mean what she said 30 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. But we don't actually hold that kind of belief. It's
Yeah.
like a debt is owed; it has to be repaid. And and that's the major contradiction because that falls completely in line with conservative ideology in the
Just
United States.
stall. Just stall. Just
Yeah,
keep it going. And that's what you can see. That's what Israel's doing too. They're just like, okay, maybe the Nakba wasn't great, but like we just kept stalling that shit out, just stalling and stalling. And then at some point you get to say, oh yeah, maybe that wasn't great, but that was so long ago. Are you still even thinking about that? I've already forgotten. And that's the conservative tactic throughout time is just stall, stall, stall. Um, but like at like a cultural, or you said like legacy level, somebody's raised like this is your background, right? You're
yeah. This is
a
your history, your heritage.
yeah, right. Like, what do you what do you do with that? Like for me, I think personally, I think from a liberal perspective, there actually needs to be a culture that it's more okay for people to talk about what that is. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't say like, wow, that's really fucked up that that's all you got from your culture is like we used to own slaves and we tried to overthrow the government. Like that's damn dude, like that's rough. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't think it should be shut down. I mean, personally, I've never experienced being on a college campus and somebody tried to talk about liking the Confederate flag and they were told to shut up. I'm sure that's happened. I've never firsthand witnessed that, but
For me, I'm in New York, so the things that people argued when I was in college was like against fracking and war
mm,
and like what was the big one? Abortion and like
hmm
and those were the climate change. That was the biggest more than any of those other things was
yeah,
like the
yeah.
whole which I think I've talked to you about. I think is like a giant I think it's a giant like I think did I ever talk to you about NGOization and like
A
the
little
taking of
bit.
movements and I think that's I think that's largely what that like climate change agenda relates to is like you're
Mm,
taking a bunch of active young people who are in colleges that are going to end up being like a huge political force in the country
mm,
and then you're giving them the biggest existential problem and giving them all explanations of what the case is, what needs to happen, etc.
hmm
And then you are channeling and fueling them into a movement that can be monetized and can have like
uh-huh.
hierarchical systems.
For
And
awareness.
yeah, and then you're telling them, well,
Yeah.
you know, you can never engage in eco-terrorism.
hmm
And so
We
their
can
only
give you a
avenue,
salary if you just like talk about this stuff, but don't do anything.
yeah, and then the only outcome that they can have is, well, in order to deal with climate change, is to go to world leaders,
hmm
and the world organizations are already like lopsided. It's there's already inequality there, and then convince them, and then convince corporations to build all the products that you need to have a sustainable future. So
hmm
yes, you get your like, you know, you get your like vegan like you know, without no meat chicken nuggets from Tyson or something.
hmm
But guess what? They're just going to be produced somewhere all the way across the world and they're just going
hmm
to have to be transported all the way to your country. And then yes, you get your solar panels, but it's the same as that they're going to be produced somewhere across the world and brought over here
hmm
and big business is always going to get a check, is always going to get something from it.
Yeah.
And it's like and it's organized in such a way that like it's very militant to never engage in eco in any form of eco
hmm
terrorism. They're like very against that and they say, oh, it'll cause more harm to the environment, etc., etc. And so what happens is you get a bunch of young people that are disaffected in these Western countries, particularly the United States, that you can't even talk to them about other politics because they'll zone out and eventually just go to, well, the biggest problem, if we're talking about problems, is climate change. And well, there's nothing we can really do about that.
hmm
And then it becomes a doomer circle jerk over how
Right.
we're all gonna die. And it's humorous because it's like you're living in the countries that are the least likely to deal with the most consequence because they have the most power. So as soon as we're experiencing hardcore climate change impacts, the United States is going to recover better than most countries
hmm
because look at what happened with the supply chain crisis. Which country was still able to get the goods they wanted, just at slightly higher prices, and which
Yeah.
country has been able to recover largely from that is the U.S. So it's like,
Right. So again, we're incentivized to not do shit.
yes,
I'm
and
curious to know,
it's
did you guys
targeting
go ahead?
peace.
Are you heading up?
No.
No. Oh,
Oh,
sorry. What did you
Oh.
say?
what did you say?
Oh, I was gonna ask you guys. You guys see the South Park episode that touched on the smart toilets?
No, go into
Sounds
it.
super familiar. No.
It was one of the more recent new
Mm.
episodes. They actually kind of took a jab at like the toilet paper industry, if you will, and how many trees they got to cut down just to give Americans the amount of toilet paper we use on a regular basis.
Dude, I will never forgive South Park for their like man bear pig shit. I think they single handedly convinced probably like hundreds of thousands of people not to believe in climate change. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
No,
I
Yeah,
saw that one.
So
no,
so
go
when
into
yeah,
it.
of course.
Al Gore was going around doing his screenings of An Inconvenient Truth, um, which I don't know. Whatever you want to say about that, whether that was like, effective or ineffective or whatever. When that came out, they made an episode parodying him as just this like alarmist guy, um, who's, I don't even know if that was like the point of the episode, but that's what everybody took away, is that he was worried about like a man bear pig coming and attacking everybody. Um, and so they depicted him as just this
Wait,
like,
is that where that comes from? The whole man
yeah,
bear thing shit?
That
Damn, bro.
wasn't
So
the same
culturally unaware.
time. That wasn't the same time he came out with An Inconvenient Truth, though, right?
wasn't it? I thought, then what was it?
I
Because it
think there's
was,
2 episodes around that, but
um, I think they
yeah,
did an episode later. They said something apologizing, but like the damage is done.
Well, there was that
Um,
Michael Moore documentary. What was it, like Fahrenheit 9/11 or some shit?
yeah.
And around that time, it
Um,
was right after George Bush was president, so they were still talking about Al Gore, and then so like they could have talked about his climate change shit then. I don't know.
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
South
I'm
Park
sorry for this
creators.
first topic.
They were initially
I
unconvinced about Al Gore's film An Inconvenient Truth, and they were so it's just like South Park for when it started, it was like mocking people who were too serial about things, which was great when it was like, the Christian right saying that you couldn't swear. That was like a good thing to be like, oh, that's stupid, I don't care. But at a certain point, when the mainstream conversation things were like, okay, racism's kind of bad, climate change is pretty bad, and it's like the people who are taking things kind of serial actually have like some real shit that they're talking about, and they still have just the same response to it. Um,
I never really liked South Park personally because it's kind of like not the greatest for like black people, so it's like I always
mm,
had this skepticism.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, couldn't you argue that it's not that South Park really changed, but it's just that you got older?
Yeah, I mean, there's a big part. I love South Park when I was like, 10. I was a huge fan.
well, yeah, I mean the creators are libertarian. I kind of
Mm,
like shows, honestly, that are like that though, that just sort of seem to mimic or make fun of real life situations.
mm-hmm.
It gives me some sort of copium, I guess.
I mean,
um,
I really like the stuff where it was just like, I don't know, kids off in their own little like fantasy world, or like the WoW episode was like fun, where they're kind
oh
of
yeah,
like making fun of in a loving way, like very niche things that it's like to even make fun of them is kind of a compliment, just because it's like no one really understands it intimately enough, to be able to make fun of it that way unless you really understand it. Those were
Cartman's
cool,
mom
but it's
bringing him the
like,
toilet.
sorry, which?
Cartman's mom bringing him the toilet.
No,
You remember that?
yeah,
Oh,
I didn't say that.
I just remembered it as like there was a time where like Family Guy was like edgy, and then like
mm-hmm.
for the people who are like real edgelords who are like, oh, you like Family Guy, there was like Robot Chicken and
Oh
like
yeah,
South Park. There were just shows
uh-huh,
that were like over the top
yeah,
in order to like get shock attention. And then the more you engaged in that content, it's like what do they call that? It's like shit posting, where it's like the more you engage in it, the more it shapes your humor, and it's no longer like shock and awe. It's like this
mm-hmm.
is what you consider humor,
Yeah. You're kind of just a dick. Like,
and it's like you're just like desensitized to things that a lot of
mm-hmm.
people find jarring,
Yeah.
I
and you
think
see
it
it
was
as
the
like
cutaways
just
that
humor.
the South Park creators took issue with when it came to Family Guy, from my understanding. They thought the cutaway skits were
Or like
Too
lacking
lazy.
rampant. You're right.
creativity or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like
Yeah.
a manatee collecting balls out of a fish tank or something.
Yeah,
They'd do it better.
that was pretty funny. I mean, say what you want about Robot Chicken, at least like the skits were super short, and they didn't do the long ass pauses because they're like, oh, you're still watching this thing, but I don't like you, the viewer. That got
Well,
old on Family Guy
yeah.
really fast.
Yeah, I'm curious, Socrates, just to sort of change the subject here. I'm sure somebody's already asked you about this, but how did the canvassing in Ohio go? I'm surprised you were only there for about a week, like everybody else there.
No, it was like a weekend.
Oh,
So it
okay.
was like a
Gotcha.
Saturday and Sunday. I actually ended up staying another day in Ohio because it was like cheaper flights. Um, it went great. I mean, I canvassed a ton of people. I didn't get a single person signed up to vote because it was all like college kids who had moved, or people who were like they were like, I was like, are you registered? Is everybody in your household registered? And they were like, you know, are you guys ready to vote? And they were like, oh yeah, no, you gotta vote. And I asked them like, what do you care about? And they were like, democracy. Like we can't let Trump in here. So it was like mostly people who were just like super super pumped to vote. But it was cool. I got some people who were a little bit like maybe more on the edge, and I kind of talked up Biden a little bit. Um, but it was a ton of fun, and it was like it was fun, and it was kind of wild to meet like a shitload all at once of people I just know from panels in person. Like I
Yeah.
hung out with Tiberius and Sprouticus, and V and Callie and all these people. I met Wick. Wick
I
was
saw
like one of
that.
the first people I met. Um, so that was a lot of fun. It was like a Comic Con for Twitch.
That's a pretty crazy travel. You're like you said Cali or something?
No, that was
Those
the
kind-
name of one of the streamers.
No, I meant like where you're from.
Oh no, I'm from the East Coast.
Oh, so you're in my coast.
Oh yeah,
Oh
Best
wow!
Coast.
I always thought you were just like in like California.
Is
or
it
something.
the hair?
It was the job and like the way you
Mm.
talk about stuff. It seemed like you went down a career field that would land you in
Mm.
California.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a lot of tech on the East Coast too. But both of my parents are from California, so I probably have some amount of California vibe from there.
You don't sound like you're from New York, but not
Mm.
everyone on the East Coast is from New York,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. So
But yeah, it was a great weekend, and it was cool to see Ohio. Yeah, I'd never been out there, and it was like Cincinnati, so it's just like right on the border of like Kentucky and Indiana. Um,
Did
uh,
you meet up with Dylan?
yeah. I
To
didn't.
see Lonerbox and Destiny?
Yeah,
and
Lonerbox, Destiny, Erudites, um,
isn't Loner Box
Connor
like from
Points.
another country? Isn't he from
Yeah,
like?
he's from the UK. He like flew out to America.
Yeah, I think he's
To help Americans vote for. That's really funny. I'm not gonna lie. That's really funny.
They're bussing them in from fucking foreign countries to
I'm just
steal our
saying, like,
elections.
if you're ever to debate about him and he tries to bring up like Tucker Carlson or something, you'd be like, didn't you fly to another country to try and convince their voters, like to engage in election interference?
Yeah,
But-
can get after him for that. Elysium, shoot, what's his name? The llama. Crap, his name's
Pixie?
Pixie, yeah, but not. But the guy who Flow Trace, he had like a pinata llama like VTuber avatar for a while.
Yeah, with the big eye.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the same picture, and I don't even think I've talked to this person, but I've seen that icon.
But it was wild to just like go someplace and have people recognize me from the internet and recognize people from the internet. Yeah. Counterpoints was fun. He's also into Peep Show.
A peep show? Like what? You
Uh,
slipped that in? Like what?
Peep Show, the British comedy, like
Oh,
kind of
okay, I didn't
sitcom
know.
Peep
I'm
Show.
thinking like something.
He's into peep shows, going to like porn theaters,
Yeah, like-
Yeah, it's cool,
That's
Ohio's got some great porn theaters, so after canvassing, that's most of what we did.
When in Ohio, do as Ohioans do.
Honestly, Ohio, yeah, felt like it could be the place that would still have like a lot of porn theaters. Shout out Cincinnati. A lot of good cafes.
What was something that they all talked about, like food wise, or that Ohio doesn't have that?
They had this like, fuck, what was it called? There was some like chili place that I was supposed to visit, and I looked it up, and it was like inches of cheese piled on top. I
Oh, I
didn't end
hate,
up going there.
I
I
hate.
mean, it looked like it could be kind of good, but kind of a heart
I'm
attack.
lactose intolerant, so it's like,
Not a fan.
yeah, looks can be deceiving.
Yeah, I don't think they would have had like vegan cheese there either. Didn't seem like that kind of place.
Oh, oh, I'm you know, if it's cheese, I'll eat it. I'm gonna shit myself if
Oh,
it's too
okay.
much cheese. Then I'm just
You
out.
would have been shitting yourself for weeks with the amount of cheese.
Oh, hell no.
I was piled on that. I almost went to a Chick-fil-A and I had like a, like a moral dilemma, but then it turned out to be closed on Sundays because they're like religious right, whatever. So their own, conservatism saved me from patronizing them.
What? Why do you have a dilemma with Chick-fil-A? Is
Oh, because they've donated a ton to like anti-gay lobbies and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I've heard their chicken's really good, so that was the dilemma.
Oh, you've never had
I've never
Chick-fil-A?
had Chick-fil-A. They
Oh,
like
I
they
mean,
put the chicken in like pickled brine or something before they fry it, and that makes it crazy good.
their chicken is like it's weird to explain. It's never a miss,
Mm,
but sometimes it's really good, and other
interesting.
times it's just like good, and it depends on like from my perspective, like how they're frying it, and like
Mm,
'cause sometimes it's like you get your Chick-fil-A and you just know you see the
mm-hmm.
crisp, it's like a brownish color. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna bite into this, and they use so much butter that it's like it just tastes like fucking. It just tastes really good, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like
Like
I
out of
think
this world.
yeah, and I think like a part of Chick-fil-A is like really propped up. I
Mm,
think like the people who like say anything about their fries or like their other foods, I think that's all kind of cap. It's like their
mm-hmm.
chicken sandwiches are pretty good, their nuggets are overpriced but really good,
Mm.
and outside of that, it's kind of like I mean there isn't
Kind of
anything that
mid.
like it's definitely above that, but
Okay.
I just don't think it's like
It's nothing
you shouldn't feel
exceptional.
like yeah, exactly. You shouldn't
Mm.
feel like you're really missing out on something. It's like have you eaten Shake Shack?
Yeah, Shake Shack's
It's kind of
so
like how
overpriced, but like pretty
the
good.
same thing. It's like how
Yeah.
Shake Shack, if you never went there, people talk about it like it's like you
Mm-hmm.
gotta just fucking eat that.
Yeah.
And then you eat it, and the first few times you're like, I completely get it. It's amazing. And then you get used to it, and you're kind of like, oh, it's just a place that's kind of overpriced. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
few things they have that are really nice.
It feels like some people get so pumped about chains, and it's like, okay, so I went to a Raising
Yeah, like
Cane's.
rappers and like rappers and like they always wear them around their necks and
Yeah. Okay, In-N-Out is pretty good. I would stay in In-N-Out. I've probably only been there like twice, but that shit's pretty good. That's legit, like pretty good, and it's really cheap, and
I
it's
didn't
got
know
like
that.
a nice kind of whatever '60s diner, '50s diner, vibe to it. Um, that's kind of fun. Like In-N-Out, I would stand. Um,
I didn't know they were cheap. That changes a lot of things in my mind.
yeah, I got like, oh my god, the last time I went there, I was visiting like my cousins out in Cali, and I got just like a whole pile of food for like not that much money, and I'm kind of getting hungry just thinking about it.
No, no, no.
Hey, Tenflix, yeah, Tenflix, one of the people I got to hang out with out in Ohio. Feel free to jump back here if you want. Just right in the Discord. Oh right, of course my bot doesn't work. Where did my bot go? I just wasn't here for a while and you just fucked off.
Yeah, man.
In Twitch or in the Discord?
Yeah, yeah. On Twitch, my bot's gone AWOL. I literally set it up so long ago. I don't even remember how I did any of that. I set it up like years ago when I set up all my Twitch stuff. Oh my god, I have to figure that out.
You
All
gotta
right, you found the
recall.
link. Yeah, feel free to hop in here, man. Um, yeah, I did karaoke with Wick. I was gonna karaoke with Tenflix, but I went with the streamers, and they were like, "Oh, we're just gonna stop by the house first, and I'm like, well, this shit ain't happening.
I talked with Wick and Brianna Wu recently on their call-in panel.
Oh, nice. What did you talk about?
Believe it or not, I kind of had to bring up the age-old conversation of Gamergate and how that's still relevant today.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this fool.
What up, fool, dude? What the hell?
Damn, that was a lot of animosity just on entrance. Like,
Damn, dude, I have no idea who you are.
Hey, I
What
sent
do.
you a
We've got the
friend request.
drama.
damn. See, this is what they mean by like the erosion of American values. It's like it's crazy. It's like can't even enter a VC anymore without like just antagonism, division.
Yeah, right.
The hate permeates every level of our society. Even Discord is not immune to it.
I feel like I didn't do nothing, dude. What
This
the hell?
and named appropriately.
Yeah, Ohio was cool though. Fucking yeah, I was like, this man is definitely not coming to. We got to that karaoke bar. I was there for like 15 minutes, and I was like, nobody else is showing up to this.
Dude, I was pumped. It looked sick. It had like a 4.6 rating.
I've got exclusive footage of Wick singing Barbie Girl at that at that place.
Wait, you're right. He came out both nights then, because I karaoke'd with him at this bar the night after. And he was like, let's get some shots. And I was like, all right, Wick wants to go. Okay.
Yeah, he so we got to that place. He got baited, dude. The person that we were with was like, listen, all you have to do is the kin parts. And Wick was like, oh, I can do the kin parts. And then he gets up there and the dude we were with was like, hey, Barbie. And Wick like turned, like he snapped his head at him and was like, what the fuck, man? And then he was just Barbie from that point.
That's how it happens. This is what the left is trying to do to you. They're trying to turn you into Barbie.
They're feminizing our men, our veterans.
It's true.
What are they really doing at those VA hospitals?
Yeah. The Barbie agenda.
I can't believe they made a movie about it.
It's like you don't understand the deep underpinnings of the karaoke community and what they're trying to do to our population. That's actually like, you know, that's why we still need advice. Is like they got rid of their like their media division. It's like we needed those groundbreaking documentaries of like the war between TikTok and local karaoke communities on the ground. The underground heroin ring that's going through local pizzerias in New York City.
Yeah, a crazy niche like underground drone racing in Russia.
The worst is like whenever you talk to like it's such a Redditor type thing. It's like whenever you talk to someone about these obscure things, it's like if they know and they like even show an interest, like even if they show just an inkling of knowing what you're talking about, you know they've read the exact same article as you or seen the exact same stuff as you, but it still doesn't stop your enthusiasm for explaining all of it to them again.
It's like you both seen the same TV show, but you kind of pretend that like no one's ever seen it.
Oh, that just happened today. On Apple TV, there's this show. It's like glorifying like this airborne division during World War II.
Oh, Masters of the Air.
It's super glorification. Like when you're watching it, it's like it's just like it's hard to describe other than propaganda. And it's like weird because it's like they're showing all these people just die and the trauma they deal with, but they're presenting them as like just very masculine, stoic figures dealing with their trauma and just doing it. And I was looking at this like Facebook thing, and it was like it's one of those communities where they upload historical images, and you know it always gets political because people use it as a way of being like, look how great this place was under the British or under this type of rule. And so someone posted like a picture of like this airborne division going through flak in like in Germany, and like they're like all the comments were people like giving intricate details of this, and no one mentioned the episode of the show. And I'm like, That was literally last week's episode. Like
Yeah.
that was the exact mission was last week's episode on this show. It's obviously directly linked to the posting of this and the interest you guys have, and you're all giving facts you learn that you can just learn from one episode of this TV show that happens to be currently airing, and then they're all pretending like they did the research themselves. They have families that were involved, or like that, like they read books on it, and it's just weird. It was cringe. It's cringe.
When you start realizing that somebody's quoting from like the Wikipedia page that you just read?
Worse, or it's
But
like,
worse
you
because it's
realize-
a dramatic
if you
TV
realize They
show.
watch the same like video that you watch. It's like, oh, and it's worse when it's not even like a documentary. It's just like, oh, that's some shit that like YouTube comedian guy that like does reaction content watched, and we watched the same reaction. Like, oh, that's just what Moist Critical said, and like, you know, it's like that's when it gets really bad. I mean, that's like remember the Netflix fiasco with fucking Michael Jordan, where everybody was a Michael Jordan expert for like 3 months.
Yeah, I feel like the least consequential the thing is, the more annoyed I am by it. So I think that if you regurgitate lines from like Joe Rogan, I'm like, go fucking go fuck yourself. But if it's like a Wikipedia page or whatever, then like I don't mind as much because it's like it's whatever. You're kind of retaining like the facts as they happened or whatever. It's not like creativity that you're jocking.
Yes, yeah. Like there's like a
Start pulling
almost
jokes
like
from...
an ownership thing of it's like, oh, that's shared knowledge versus like you're just not crediting the person you just took that point from.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that on social media, right? Because like, I would imagine most of us are like from like the age that you experienced Vine, and you just see like so there's a lot of TikToks that are just copies of popular Vines, and they get really popular because some of the kids don't know that, and then these people are, and it really kills me. I hate when people steal content from older creators, because all I'm thinking about is like, this is a just really desperate person who has so much free time and can't think of anything unique that they're going to steal older content, present it as their own, and then like just keep going through those lies, and it's like, oh, it kills me.
I don't know if you were specifically describing Elon Musk, but him just
Oh,
like
he does that?
reposting iFunny memes from like 2010.
Well, I'm talking about people who like they steal a skit from like 2012 or what have you, and it's like presenting it as like, oh, it's just theirs. Whereas like reposting a meme is like, come on, memes are like our pop culture. Like if you can't repost a meme, that's sacrilege. Like me.
No, but
Remember-
literally Elon Musk like pasting comments that people have made in his thread as his own tweets rather than retweeting them.
Oh, that's actually disgusting. That's disgusting. That's
think,
evil. That's clout demon.
Yeah. Dude owns the platform, and he...
Remind him that at one point Ashton Kutcher was the most popular person on his platform. The old days of Twitter.
Speaking of memes, Tenflix, I'm curious.
What's up?
Does Wick have a policy of memes on his own server, like memes of him?
Not usually. I think it would need to be like, it would need, but yeah, no. I mean, it would need to be like fucked up or something.
Like
but no, not
deep
as a
fake
general
porn?
rule.
Okay. No, yeah, you mentioned the karaoke event you guys did, right? So I was on Reservoir's server, and it kind of looked like somebody took a screenshot of like Wick doing kind of a Zeke Heil. Kind of.
I do not
Yeah.
remember that from the night, but
That was from.
that must have been Saturday.
Yeah, I think no. I think it
I
was
can
on
see an
the-
avenue where somebody might turn that into a meme. I did make a meme of Wick though, and Zephyr Hash was the one who inspired me to do that. So don't be blaming me for that.
I would-
At least blame Zephyr Hash first, okay?
Oh, I'll blame Zephyr for everything. God damn it, that motherfucker. Yeah, no. Like it would need to be something that like breaks an actual rule. Generally speaking, like, I mean, fuck, I've posted a shit ton of like memes that are shitting on Wick.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. But I'm not like trying to completely demonize the dude and make him out to be like the next coming of Hitler.
It's just bad.
Yeah, as a dentist, Wick should like. I graduated from dentistry 2 years ago, right?
Okay.
Wick should fix his teeth.
I think he's trying to get money for that. He had like a GoFundMe to try to help fix his teeth. Yeah.
But I think he took that money to go to TwitchCon, right?
No, absolutely not. No.
Dude,
that money happened. That money happened so much.
You as his fan are
TwitchCon.
spreading like the biggest like rumors about him. Oh yeah, I think he took that money and he spent it on. I think he was doing this thing high.
Can he get like some like really subsidized healthcare for that? Like, didn't he like serve and shit?
Talk to almost any veteran, bro. They're not like big fans of the VA healthcare.
Yeah, but he also has like 10 years to wait for them teeth. You know, it's not like he wants it right away. You know.
I guess I don't know. So like based on like everything he's told me, he like got the GoFundMe like completed or whatever. And then like the shopping that he had done at like the onset of making the GoFundMe or whatever, the price had basically went up by the time that he went back with the money. Or like, and he's also in like the middle of like fucking like he's in like a rural area.
So you don't have options. You can't just go to another.
Right. Yeah. He's like pretty limited unless he wants to. Man. I mean, I guess drive to a city or whatever.
Sounds like pulling teeth.
Yeah. But no, the money from TwitchCon came from, as far as I know, it was like almost entirely one donor, who donated like a shit ton of money.
Because the Oilers.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like it was like literally just an Oiler.
Wow.
And like not only that, but like, the Oiler demanded, he was like, if you guys go, you guys have to put, like, he was like the reason that we stayed in like a nice hotel instead of like off the strip in some like shithole. Like we stayed in the fucking MGM Grand because of this dude.
Damn.
So like, yeah, I don't know. As far as I know, it was one guy. If it was tooth money, I had no idea at the time that I was spending tooth money.
Yeah, bro, Tooth Fairy hit that day.
Yeah.
Wait, Oilers, whales. Wait a minute, I just realized, like, they make oil out of whales. Is there a connection here?
Oh shit! And then you call them dudes.
I've said too much.
Dude, something.
Yeah, no.
Probably the weed affect me a little bit.
The weed affected you?
Yeah, I'm smoking weed.
That's disgusting. How could you?
That's no excuse, bro. You're in the adult bracket of drug doers, okay? Like, smoking weed should just be your baseline at this day and age, okay?
Yeah, even a guy who worked 8 hours per day, like, this is like a fucking. Sometimes I returned from house and it took like some kind of I wrap it up, like you use like a lot of like cannabis and weed and these kind of things. Moroccan weed. Don't miss, like, we don't take from Mexico.
Do you guys have weed? I thought you just had like hash.
A Moroccan hash.
Hashish, yeah. Hashish is a weed, basically. Yeah. It's a weed,
But it's like, you guys don't have like, you don't have flour. You have like the pressed hashish.
The concentrate.
Yeah. Which is fun, honestly. Yeah. I had some friends in Paris. I visited them. It's like, mix it in a little rolly up cigarette, spliff it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Morocco legalized hashish. No.
Oh, interesting. Can you grow it though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they realize that there is an incentive for like producing it and these kind of things.
So can you just like walk into a store and buy it, or is it just like decriminalized, or?
Decriminalized. Yeah.
Okay.
Decriminalized. Yeah.
So it's still kind of
which is a good thing,
but it's not like yeah.
It's
a good step. Wait, didn't I hear? Wasn't Biden pushing for moving like descheduling?
This is a whole thing. It's like it's very. It just basically is. Biden doesn't give a fuck about people who smoke weed, and he wants to get their votes. And
dude, he should. He fucking should.
He did like
doing the thing. He's just doing the thing of prolonging the process as long as possible.
He can say that he wanted it, but just didn't get it.
And then positioning it as like, well, the other side is just never going to give you your legalization. So it's you're just kept in this position of a slow drip feed of lesser of two evils. And after 4 years of promises, or 3 years of promises, it's like where we are at now is we're probably not gonna get our Senate banking bill, and then
Mhm.
on top of that, like we aren't gonna get like a great federal bill. They're trying to redo parts of the farm bill, which allowed people to have like certain gummies, CBD gummies, etc., with little small traces of THC, and then they're looking to like reschedule it to Schedule 3,
Yeah.
which would change things for particular pharmaceutical companies that have like particular patents that the United States government hasn't fully,
Mm.
and allow them to just have ownership of particular like types of THC in the form of like medication. And then it also makes it so that there's
To
this
do more
unofficial
research, right?
100%. They
Yeah.
focus on that, but one of the major parts is that there's an unofficial kind of rule that's been the way for many years. I think since like after Eisenhower's, like Nixon's time and such, which is like they just agree that Schedule 3 and lower are the drugs that they're not going to test and then remove you from like your job in federal jobs.
Oh wow, that's
Even
huge, right? Because they'll finally be able to hire for like the NSA, for
But
IT.
that's the thing, is that it's just one of those things where it's just kind of like unofficial, and then sometimes they put official rules in particular departments. So it makes it so that the belief is, okay, now if you're a federal employee, you should be able to smoke weed.
Yeah. But they
in
can take you out
reality,
anytime.
yeah, in reality, what could just happen is as soon as the rescheduling happens, you have a particular change in leadership, and they go, okay, well, the IRS workers can do that, but in this department, we create a new rule,
Yeah.
particularly just for marijuana, that makes it so that it's still tested because it's still like a scheduled drug. So it's kind of like the assumption is it's opening up all this freedom, but you can never trust these people unless it's in writing. So it's like in reality, what you're gaining is it's no longer Schedule 1, meaning the win is you're proving it has a medical benefit, which is the most obvious thing to prove, and then you're scheduling it to in a realm where you can get more testing, and pharmaceutical companies with patents can start getting accepted, which I don't like. I don't like the idea of that.
Yeah.
Other than that, like I mean, the annoyance is that it's so delayed. It's like they've been in this rescheduling process forever, and now it's like because of the war and the attacks that happened in Israel and Palestine in like in October, that was around the time that we were waiting for his big announcement on marijuana, which then he then delayed, because this is what Biden does: is every time there's a big announcement that you're expecting and something else happens, and that announcement's really progressive, he just delays the progressive
Yeah.
thing because he doesn't really want to do it.
Coming
So
in my
then-
second term, maybe.
Yeah, he did it for student loans, where he was supposed to announce what he thought about the student loan plan before summer, and he made everyone wait because there was like a shooting, a big shooting, the Buffalo, the top shooting, and then he announced his plans after the summer and after Supreme Court cases, and it's like he always does these big delays for progressive stuff. So right now we're going into like, potentially his last April, which is like April's really big for weed, obviously, with the 420 stuff, but because of different summits and political groups. And, you're expecting him to have it rescheduled. We were expecting like a rescheduling for that, like a
It's all
celebratory
federal
April.
departments, right? So it doesn't need any kind of congressional anything or.
It's kind of like there's a bunch of different like orgs that are involved with like
It's the
particular
DA,
like
HHS.
drugs, but the main idea of it is that it goes through a process where they're looking into investigating it, and I forget what that process is initially called, but they investigate it and they agree to look into it to see if it should be rescheduled. From there, after it goes through this process within like you're speaking to like people within I think it's the DEA, it then they can request for it to be reviewed by the health department.
Yep.
And the health department can give an independent review, and that can be used or ignored by like the DEA, but is usually used by the DEA, and the DEA politically uses that as an excuse. So like if the health department says something that benefits them politically, they'll utilize it. And then from there, eventually they can make their own determination, and the government department makes their own determination. And so it's like it sounds like a lengthy process, but in reality, the heads of all these departments can be selected and removed. So you can control the person who's at the very top of the whole structure. Then on top of that, like the process can be expedited, just like any other process internally, and it doesn't need to take this long. And on top of that, the process has happened already. So under Donald Trump, they already investigated marijuana, so they already have a bunch of like stuff they could already utilize for this rescheduling. And so from my belief, the delays are in some part because of, quote unquote bureaucracy, but a large part because of
Just political timing. He just wants
the
it.
president and what he wants.
Yeah.
And then it gets pressure. And then obviously, what always happens is people say, oh, it's not the president. It's just the department that the president appoints the head of
Yeah.
and works with. And they do that. So it's kind of like, how Miguel Cardona, the head of the education department, is really great. He's changed so many things for people who owe student loans, and he's far more progressive on that than Joe Biden. And yet, everything he does that's positive, the credit goes to the Biden administration and Biden. Yet, anything that's negative, it's, oh, this is just the bureaucracy of dealing with the education department and the measures, and Biden's doing his best, and he's kind of removed from being able to take action. But it's like, in reality, it's like, no, that guy could expedite things. He has shown that he's willing to. He works with Elizabeth Warren. He works with different lawyers. He cares about, he was a teacher who now cares about like people who owe debt, etc. And it's kind of like how our government works in that way. But I mean, the only thing I hate is that, we got to be really careful in this time period, because it's like people who've been asleep wake up in this political climate. They see Donald Trump, they see a huge election, and anything progressive, they just pat Biden on the back. And there's literally years worth of news articles that are pumped out like every day that just create a messaging for these people that like Biden was super progressive on these things. So like that's marijuana, student loan reforms. Those are two things where if you just type it in, anything you see is going to be like positive about the administration, because there's literally hundreds of articles. They like Forbes, for example, posts a student loan article almost like every day about how Biden is the greatest president when it comes to student loans and has forgiven a new number of student loans every day. They post an article like every fucking day.
And who has actually done that?
What do you mean? Who has actually done it in the
Well,
sense?
you seem to like have pointed to like Miguel Cardona as like the
Education secretary.
right, but as
Yeah.
like a person. But you said like he does things and like that credit goes to Biden. Is that like what you something to that effect? Yeah.
Yeah. That was what I was implying. Yeah.
Who
Who
nominated Miguel Cardona for the position of Secretary of Education?
But it would be Biden. Yeah, they work together. Yeah.
So like when it feels weird to be like, this guy from the Biden administration does this thing, and all of the credit goes to the Biden administration.
Yeah,
And
but
that'd be a critique.
but it's the idea that just because you appoint someone, right, doesn't mean that they're your like slave. Like they follow everything that you want. So
Well-
it's
well,
like,
no, but
Yeah.
that's not the idea that I'm saying. The idea is that you appoint somebody presumably because you trust like in the policy like prescriptions that they're gonna like enact going forward. Not that they're
100%.
slave.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Right.
What is the disconnect? What is the disconnect?
Well, because you're saying that like it seems weird that all of this. I think that it's just that the name Biden is attached to it. You're like, it's weird that all of this credit goes to the Biden administration when it's actually Miguel Cardona who is the credit for it. Like Miguel Cardona is like part of the Biden administration.
It's not all Miguel Cardona. It's more so to highlight that Miguel Cardona is more progressive than Biden. And so
Sure.
Miguel Cardona wants to do more and has been doing more. And Biden has pushed him back because Biden is the one that helped Miguel Cardona get his position. So Miguel Cardona could do far more and is trying to do more. And then Biden is reining him back. And so Biden gets credit for all the positives, and it's not seen as Biden is pushing back his Secretary of Education. And then during like big briefings,
Okay, then
Biden
the
is the one who
disconnect-
speaks for the department, right?
Then the disconnect, because it seems like if your
Yeah.
issue is that the credit it goes to literally Joe Biden, then like there might be something to be said there. I guess the disconnect was that you were saying like this guy from the Biden administration is doing a thing and all of the credit is going to the Biden administration. Because I think when I hear Biden administration, I think of like the entire cabinet. I think of like a large number of people that are all sort of working in concert.
Yeah,
Towards,
then
like,
that is a misphrasing. I mean Biden himself.
okay.
So it'd be like for example, Elizabeth Warren in particular for this case, Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer were pushing further on Biden to do more about student loans for a long time and he was against that. And then Elizabeth Warren worked with a particular lawyer who had made a case for using the Higher Education Act, I believe, and Biden did not want to go through with that. He wanted it to happen through Congress if he was going to pass a student loan like forgiveness. And in the end, what had happened was Miguel Cardona, as the education secretary, you know, listened to the complaints of the progressives. I think it was Cory Booker, and then outside of that, Elizabeth Warren, and then he actually hired and brought on the lawyer that yeah, he was making those waves with Elizabeth Warren and brought them into the education department as like an advisor to help work with the education secretary himself and to make these plans. And in the end, they used a weaker argumentation. They used the argumentation of, I believe, it was a particular act tied to the war on terror in like the 2000s, and saying that we're in an emergence period and that's why we should be able to cancel the loans, which the Supreme Court denied. And that showcases like, you know, a willingness to go further, work with the progressives, whereas Biden was very clear against that. And you know, you can see something almost opposite too, where it's like there's Xavier Becerra, who I think is the head of the health department, where I don't see him as like a huge I don't see him as like a huge pro marijuana individual, but being attributed to the Biden administration has made him more pro marijuana, where he sounds more pro marijuana when he's talking to like the cannabis communities, etc. And it's almost like he has changed his stances or become more pro to that community as he keeps promising that, like, you know, he's alongside them and he believes that there should be cannabis reform. And that is something I would attribute to his connection to Biden, who's holding a more positive marijuana position than previous Democrat presidents. So that's showing a juxtaposition. So it's not always one way or the other. I'm just highlighting this specific one because I care about these particular ones a lot. But outside of that, I would say that you were saying that it's very particular to Biden and it could happen if it was someone else. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think like under Trump's administration, there was particular elements of like neocons in his department that like or in his administration that aided in his perspective on foreign policy, that they kind of worked against him, and a lot of people really liked it. You know, a lot of people were okay with that, and you know, that was like a showcase of like people in the administration having differing viewpoints from the leadership, and you know, it being acceptable as a thing. Like, whereas like that's, you know, I don't think I do that, of like single out Biden.
I mean, it's tough. It feels like for a president, a lot of what you can judge them on is like what they're willing to be swayed by. So for something like marijuana, I think it's like, it's possible that Trump could have been like a wild card and he could have been trying to go like a populist route and could have pushed that forward. But something like student loan forgiveness, you know, there's no way he would have been amenable to being pushed on that at all. So it feels like, yeah, I mean, you're right. On one hand, Biden is pushing back on a lot of those progressive causes, but on the other hand, he's also eventually
He's at the
he's
spear.
eventually giving
Well,
in. So it's kind of, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like conservatism. So it's like the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have differing views on how the country should run. But the idea is there's a populist wave in the country, and there's a large amount of populism in the country, and the people are pushing in a particular direction. And so both parties kind of work in tandem and have you know, they don't have the same opinions, but they still want to curtail certain levels of progress under the same idea, conservative idea that it could somehow disrupt our institutions. So, like for example, the people who want student loan forgiveness, they don't care. They just want the student loan forgiveness.
Hmm.
Yet, the perspective of leadership is going to largely be at this point in time one that's more divided on that, because
Hmm.
there's Democrats who believe, okay, there should be means tested,
Yep.
like heavily means tested, like student loan forgiveness. And then on the other side, you have people who are like, well, there shouldn't be at all. You owed a debt, you have to pay it. You knew the terms.
Hmm.
And for marijuana, it'd be like you have one side that says, we really don't really want people to have access to legal marijuana, because that's like the government endorsing it, and we don't
Hmm.
like the government endorsing a drug like marijuana. And then on the other side, you have like a great division, and because there's a large amount of Democrats that are being paid and Republicans being paid, but largely Democrats, um, over the idea of legalization bringing money. So it's like a
Hmm.
neoliberal thing. It's like we want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
legalize weed, but we want to have a federal tax, even
Hmm.
though the federal government didn't really help you with your state legalization plans
Yep.
to the level they could have. We want to then tax you more. We want to control regulations on the whole industry. We
Hmm.
want to have like a top-down approach to it so late in the game. And like
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at. And whereas there's a lot of people who are just like, I don't care about any of that. I just want home grow, and I just want to
Hmm.
be able to legally access it. And it's nice to be able to go to stores and buy it, etc.
Hmm.
But you're talking about taxes, and Americans are really anti-taxes. So like I don't know. I think like um I think the major thing would just be that like when right now you got to ask yourself, why is it that things that are really far right in the country are more acceptable to talk about and
Hmm.
more acceptable to really discuss, and things that are far more left are like completely a taboo and will break down our structures completely. You can't even talk about them.
Hmm.
And it's like a few years ago we were all talking about the opportunity of Medicare for all, and that's not even that left. It's not like Medicare is
Yeah.
free. And then like we were talking about like what like they're like not just the green energy, which they've continued talking about to an extent, but we were talking about like free college education and
Hmm.
such. And then now we're talking about like better payment plans that are less aggressive on college students, which is
Hmm.
progress, but it's
Yeah.
a different conversation. And we're talking about lowering some costs of particular prescription drugs, and yet we're talking about so much about the border, the demographics of the country, like transgenderism, race relations in the country, from the perspective of the right wing. We're catering so
Yeah.
much more to the far right's perspective, and that's not seen as just those conversations are destabilizing. Yet it's
Hmm.
seen that talking about the far left stuff, that's just too destabilizing. There's things that we have to focus on right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
You know,
love.
Todd
Yeah.
Slime. Todd Slime actually like
Mm.
talked about that. You know, although I'm not a viewer of Todd Slime, right? But he talked about like concerned trolling, right? The idea like that, like these like issues are like too far, you know, like you have to like walk away from these issues that far left, you know. It's like it's at the moment we have to focus on like we have to focus on these issues, you know. But like in fact, like I think like uh, these are not far issues, you know, far right issues. The healthcare or these kind of things are, you know, we still didn't begin the opening the book, you know. At the end of the day, like we still like these like Medicare ending wars, right? These are not far left, you know, far left, you know. Like if you want to talk about far
Hmm.
left theories about like struggle and revolution and these kind of things, well, we still didn't reach it. It's still far, you know. I mean,
Have you guys heard of Rutger Bregman?
No.
It's a Dutch historian author. So he went kind of viral when he went to Davos, and he was saying like, okay, you rich people want to make things better. You're not doing shit if we're not talking about taxes, 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 taxes. We need to tax the rich. And Tucker Carlson really liked that, and he brought him on to interview, and he tried to make it about like democratic elites, And Rutger was like, well, you're just a pawn for your conservative whatever people who don't give a shit about this. You want them to have higher lower taxes. And Tucker just like lost it and started swearing at him. Cut the interview, didn't air it, but this guy was filming it and like aired it.
Oh, I remember him. I remember
But
him.
he wrote a book that
yeah.
I actually just read over that Ohio weekend. It was like a really fast, snappy read. It's called Utopia for Realists, and he talks about this idea of we've reached a utopia in terms of what people of like the Middle Ages would think, where it's like we can get food, we can get lots of food, we can get food whenever we want. We have enough, not everybody has enough food, and it's not always that great, but in general, it's possible to go out
Well,
and for not that
yeah,
much
we
money buy a
got
shitload of food.
refrigeration and delivery.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, utopia isn't just a place you reach. It's like a new horizon that you keep setting. And it's really important to have, like you were saying, something that's maybe it's not 100% realistic, or maybe it's realistic, but it seems like it's kind of outside normal political discussion. So he's talking about, I think it was 3 things. It was universal basic income that everybody has. And all of these experiments that have showed that, like, if you give homeless people, if you give poor people money, they use it really well. They become like entrepreneurial as fuck. Their IQ improves, their circumstances improve, and it's something that just would make everybody's lives better. And it's something that Nixon almost got accomplished. It went through, I don't know what, the Senate, but not the Congress, or vice versa. That was like a big thing he wanted to be his legacy. So universal basic income, 15-hour work week. This is something that we thought was going to come like by the turn of the century. It seemed obvious because, you have machines that could do work you needed to do. You don't have to do that work. And then you don't have to work as much, right? It seems pretty straightforward, but that's not how capitalism works, because for a factory to make money, they need to produce way more shit if everybody else is producing way more shit. So nobody gets to work less because they want to make as much profit, and they need to. Actually thinking about how to categorize all the work that we do that isn't considered work because it's not part of the GDP. So, like, great example is if you have like a mom
traveling,
but even like if you have a mom raising her kid, that's not work. It doesn't contribute to the GDP. If instead she's a nanny raising somebody else's kid, that contributes to the GDP, and now it's considered work. So we have this weird situation where
there's a whole like element of that where it's just like there's genderized labor.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's particular labor that, like, if they assume like women are doing this, there's just lower costs, and it's kind of like how to put it, it's like when you're looking at particular fields, I think they call them like pink jobs and stuff. I mean, you're always going to deal with like this intersectional layer of it, which is like if you pay more, you're just going to like if you pay less, you're going to get like more likely women of color, and then if you pay more, then you might get like women, like white women, to take these jobs. But then you need to pay at a level where even men want those jobs as well for them to be complete. But then what if the field gets inundated by like men? And so it's like there's problems with that. Then on top of that, it's like there's a lot of labor that like genderized labor that's kind of like, it's kind of fucked like that, because I think we're kind of moving past that a bit, because like we live in a neoliberal era, and neoliberals, they want you to monetize every part of your life. So like for the last like 40 years or so, it's kind of like we're moving against that grain, because they want women to work, they want you to work, they want to take that, they want the work that was done in the home to be done by that other person, so that it generates money and it's a job.
Exactly.
It's essentially like wanting serfs to go into factories so they can get wage labor, and that you can collect the wages. They want all of these things to become jobs, and they believe that it would be a benefit and would be boon to economy. It would create more consumption. And so like I think there is like a general push like for people to monetize parts of their lives, etc. And then there is this kind of inequality when it comes to like
how we perceive the weight of particular work based on the history of what like people were making. Like you can do a job that is hard, but if it historically it made like less money, people are just going to be like, well, why am I going to pay you more? For
Mm-hmm.
thousands of years people did it for this, or like for
Yeah.
30 years people did it for this cost. And there has to be like a disconnect from that going forward, because it doesn't happen the other way around. Like we don't look at a bunch of IT jobs, the general populace, whereas I think like companies do, and say, why do they get $120,000 for doing that? Like, you know, like historically that wasn't even necessary, and now they're making the most money doing these particular tech jobs. And we have to think about that when it comes to particular types of manual labor. It's like if America's moving to being more of a service economy, you know, there's a reason why a lot of people don't want to do, like there's areas where jobs are available and they don't want to do those jobs. Perhaps we got to start thinking about it as like in America, those jobs just have to get paid. They have to pay more. And
Well,
then people
this is so there's
will
a
do-
wonderful anecdote about this in the book, talking about New York City, and it's about like, you know, what jobs are actually necessary and what jobs actually aren't necessary, and it doesn't have to do with who's paid more. So it was talking about the sanitation workers strike in New York City in the, this is like 80s 90s. I think this was trying to remember
where they
if that
stop
was,
taking people's garbage for like a few
yeah,
weeks.
it was either
and it was like
Giuliani
a-
or fuck, I can't remember. But it was like that shit caved pretty fast. They're like, okay, no, this is a real thing. We really need this. And they started paying them more, and now it's like, I don't know if it still is. I think it's like a pretty decently paid job, because there's always the threat that they can actually shut down the entire society if they don't pay enough. But there was a counterexample looking at in Ireland, bankers went on strike, and people just started paying with like IOUs and trading goods, and like they knew who could, you know, who's gonna pay their bar tab and who wasn't, and it just
Yeah.
it nobody gave a fuck, and the bankers eventually gave up and went back to work. I mean, looking at like, you know, teachers that aren't paid shit, but it's like, you know, are our kids going to be educated? Is that going to affect their GDP in the future? It's probably going to have an impact whether kids can read and write. You know, that might, the level of labor they can do.
Yeah, but the thing with teachers that's it's always really complicated is just that from the teachers that I talk to, it's like it's always different depending on where they live, and because all these teachers, they have so many like what would you call it, as like they have so many extracurricular things they can tie to their teaching that makes them more income. If they choose to, they can take like extra jobs where they work, and those opportunities are there. And then depending on where they live, they have completely different perspectives on teacher pay. So it's like if you talk to like some teacher from Texas, they might be like, well, in my region, like, you know, I get paid perfectly fine, and it's just lazier people, or you know, workers always want more money. I make a pretty great wage, you know, I have a pretty good plan for my future. And then you compare that to maybe some teacher in like New York City, inner New York City. So I think like the teacher thing is presented to us by the political party. I think like the Democrats is like a national
Kind of
issue,
universal thing.
but it
yeah.
seems like it's more of like it's more of a regional issue depending on where you are versus like a national issue. But there are things that impact teaching that I think are national issues, like the curriculum, like what we're teaching kids, like the perspectives on what that should be, what that should include. There are like national conversations that we're having at the same time about policing. Like,
Yeah.
okay, everyone gets to have their own police in their states, but there has to be some level of standard as well. Some people are asking for accountability, and I think there's conversations for that, right?
I just saw this thing. It was just like a news article, and it was saying like, there's, you know, 20 something like 25 city officials who are being paid like over $300,000 dollars a year. And I looked at the list, and of the top 10, you had to go down to 7th place to find one who wasn't a cop. And it's just like, it's wild. I mean, yeah, you need cops, but like even cops say like, I think we're doing too much. I think we got too much on our plate. And it's like when you,
Of course they'll say that. They'll say that
Yeah.
and then ask for more money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's tough. It's like you see things for like year to year. So again, looking at my city, there was like a year where there was like a budget increase overall,
Yeah.
but they cut funding from oversight and anti-corruption and training, and just put more into what I guess like overtime or something. um, and so it's like the actual things that give like public trust, which is like, okay, you need to be well trained so that you're not like that cop who a fucking acorn falls in his car and he has a heart attack and starts like, mag dumping. You saw that, right?
No, I've seen a few of like malicious cop things,
Oh
but I
no,
haven't
this
seen
was this was just going around. You gotta, okay. I don't know if I even want this. It's like it's
If it's
horrific and
nasty,
funny
then
at the
just
same
explain
time.
it to me.
It's literally there's a cop, there's a guy inside his car who's been handcuffed, searched and handcuffed, and he's sitting down inside the car, and an acorn falls on the car. The cop is standing outside and he thinks it's a gunshot, and he falls to the ground, starts firing toward his own vehicle, where he thinks this handcuffed guy who's been searched
I've
may
heard
be
people
shooting
talking
at
about
him.
this, I think.
Sorry?
I think I've heard people talking about this.
Yeah, and he says, "I'm hit," and he's like losing it, trying to reload, and then shooting again at the car. His partner's out there, doesn't know what the fuck is going on, so he starts shooting at the car. Somehow the guy inside isn't hurt. It looked like they didn't even hit the car. I don't understand how it's possible, but it's like you look at shit like that, and this guy like. I think he had to go to another department after that. He got like really fucked over. Yeah, he had to go to like a different department, I think. But you look at like when you cut training, when you cut oversight, when you cut anti-corruption, like these are the things that give us some faith that our police departments are doing their job at all, right? That's like it's not even people talk about how cops are, violent or predators or whatever, or like doing all this shit, but it's like we're paying them a lot of money. Like, are they even doing their job? That's an angle that I feel like isn't pushed on hard enough.
The problem with policing is that like, what job is that? Like, the everybody in the population has an idea of what police officers are supposed to do. But from my understanding, like legally, they don't have to do that. So there isn't like there's this idea of like cops are super necessary. We really need them, and it subverts the conversation of there has to be a unified perspective on what cops do. The same way everyone says there has to be a unified understanding of what the BLM movement even is, because otherwise we're not going to listen to their demands. Like we have to understand what they even want. Well, I mean, the same thing has to happen for like police. Is that like, we have to have an understanding of what are police here for. It has to be enshrined, and it has to be like explicitly stated, and then we can work on what we do with police officers. But I think that one of the big feelings that I have, I'm not like a huge police fan, as you can tell, is that like from my perspective, I believe that from my understanding that police precincts and stuff, they get a lot of money from a weird incentive structures from like Bill Clinton's time onwards, where it's like for doing particular things, your department can get particular money from particular stats. So for instance, if
it's
you have
like quest based is what you're saying.
Yeah, from my understanding, and I could be
Goddamn.
wrong. Because I'm just getting this from like 60-minute documentary that I had watched, is that like for confidential informants, they get a particular amount of money for them. They get a particular amount of money they can gain if you're near like a college or a university, because the university will give you money to clean up the area around the university. And so you get these donations that help like fund your department if you're in particular cities. Particular businesses give you extra money. And so there's all this excess money that's coming in, and it creates like these incentive structures that's the same with politicians, because they're getting like donors, and they're getting like earmarked money. And so it's like maybe for the individual cop, they don't experience that. They just experience it as, I want my overtime and I want my pay, and I just need a way to increase my pay. But the structure of policing, like the precinct must understand that, and the leadership understands where the flows of money come from. And you know, it seems like the one of the issues is like, you know, you have largely Democrat cities in the country. Most of these cities are like Democrat cities, and so what happens is a bunch of people are angry with the cops. So what do? They get new leadership in the city. New mayor comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Then whoever is the police chief would say, "Okay, you want these changes? Well, if I'm gonna do these changes, you need to give me all this money
Mm-hmm.
to appease these changes from happening." And then that new Democrat mayor or what have you is going to look at that and just say the same thing, which is, well, I just got in power. I promised all these other Democratic things that like the Democratic Party wants me to push that my constituents want, and that all costs money. And
Mm.
I was trying to pay for that by cutting into your budget. And now you're
Uh-huh.
saying I have to, you know, draw more money
Yeah.
for your budget that doesn't pull well with the people that put me in power. And then they're incentivized to just remove you because by removing you, that's that's cutting something right there, and it's making the people think you did something, and so you
Mm-hmm.
get this like this like
Kind
a
of.
weird structure where it's like you're just cutting the head off the snake, and then it just, you know, is filled up with another police chief, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not like the mayor is solving these problems like that. And you're supposed to have like an office of civil rights, like the federal government has a group of lawyers that investigate like particular like civil rights abuses from cops, etc. It's not like they're doing their job super well, so
Yeah.
they're underfunded too.
All right. We're at exactly the 4 hour mark, so I'm gonna go take a nap. Thank you guys so much for for coming through. This is awesome. Thank you, Marcellus. It was your first time coming to chat. Really appreciate it. Void, I think you brought him in. Tenflix, Wiggle. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, it's been a jam. I'm gonna rate out to Tuna Chip. Um, it was one of my karaoke pals along with Wick. Um, yeah, this is great. Anything you want to shout out right now?
Peace out.
You guys heard of Progressive Victory?
Oh hell yeah.
Kappa.